Hello, and welcome to the commentary for Goblin Issue 3. I am Solomon Mars, creator, artist, writer, blah blah blah, for the Goblin series, which is Volume 1 of the 555 saga. Alright, let's just get down to business. This is the cover. Which is really just another interior page used as the cover. I thought it looked really nice when I finished coloring it. I just like the way that it looked. It's another sort of claustrophobic cover, kind of like issue 1's cover, where everything is just filling up almost every inch of space. But I thought it kind of displayed something a little bit different than the first two issues. Like, they showed Jeff versus monsters, or just monster-like characters. And for this one, you see it's him against someone that well, to me, is clearly human, rather, or mostly human. I mean, he is human, but if you don't know that that's a mask, and it may look very alien. I really like this guy's nose. He has a really awesome nose. Yeah, I don't. I'm actually going to get into the actual issue. So it starts off just another day. So we got the title. This is the first instance of a title on Goblin, at least on the original ones. The original versions, for the first few issues, they didn't have titles. The collected editions and the PDF versions, I believe, do have titles. Yeah, I put titles on them. So that there are titles all the way through the entire series. Anyways, so just another wonderful, calm, happy, sunny, warm day on Aravana. No, not quite. I love this intro sequence. Somebody said this intro sequence reminded them of something from, I believe it was Mononoke, Princess Mononoke, by Miyazaki. And I thought, oh wow, that's interesting. It was surely something subconscious, very unintentional. If it in any way is reminiscent of it, I can kind of see how that's possible, but that's not what I was going for when I did this. But it was probably to some degree a subconscious inspiration. But I was also thinking more so of honestly another Miyazaki work, Nozca, of the Valley of Wind, and there's a sequence in the beginning when an Omu comes smashing through the salt pillars of the wasteland, chasing after her uncle. Yeah, I was more so thinking of that, which I guess it's still Miyazaki is Miyazaki, as far as inspiration. So hey, but yeah, Jeff, up to no good, and obviously paying for it. That sound effect in there is actually hand done. That's interesting. I was still actually trying to find a good place to settle, and I thought for a minute, let me actually just pencil in the sound effects that I put in there. Uh, mm, it kind of works, but at the same time it doesn't. It's a little strong. Um, sorry. Yeah, the giant caterpillar like thing is called a gaff. Gaff, Gaffes, or gaffs. Um, and I guess I should show it at some point. I will actually show what a jobi fruit looks like. But yeah, they are territorial. That's one of the primary things that gaffs eat in that region. And um, sorry, this actually continues from what I was saying on the at the end of the issue 2 commentary, where I was talking about the fact that I have switched the evolution of the the species. Well, I've kind of moved all of them up, in that insects have taken the place of our general animals on our planet, like cats, dogs, birds, sheep, deer, blah blah blah. Those kind of animals, domesticated and wild. And insects, have taken the place of that. Not necessarily things like spiders and ants per se, but insectoid. Uh, Insects, arachnids, things like that. Things with, 6 legs, things with 8 legs, things like that. They exist on their planet as sort of wild animals and domesticated animals, things like that. Because I've anthropomorphized things like birds and dogs and bears and things like that, and they are monster kind in this world. Um, so yeah, so I had mentioned that some of them get kind of big, and a gaff is a clear example of something that is really big. Oh no, the bridge is out. Oh, the bridge is out. I love these scenes of Jeff running down this hill at top speed, gravity essentially pulling him, and he's just kind of going for it. I know I've run down the side of a mountain or a hill, and it's really difficult because gravity is pulling you, and your legs can't move fast enough. Uh, you know, you just might end up hurting yourself. Um, I love this. It's like I'm going for it, and it's like going for. Oh wait! I love this picture of the gaff up close. You just see like um, all the little parts of it that I cannot name by their actual scientific names, as far as on a caterpillar, because it's based on many different species of caterpillar that I have observed. I did a lot of research in order to get like his coloring a specific way, and the spines on him, and I wanted spines. I've seen some spiny caterpillars, and I wanted a specific look for it, and so I kind of combined little parts of different caterpillars and came up with an idea of what a gaff would look like, or this particular species of gaff, because I'm sure there are others that look a little bit different. Um, yeah, his disgusting mouth, his gaping maw over there with those teeth that just kind of, it just, oh, they're so gross. Um, oh, and he jumps over the edge, and the gaff goes right after him. This is a great picture. I just kind of like where I was actually at this point. I was actually getting a better understanding of how to create depth and distance using different layers in Photoshop and using different filters. And I thought this one really came out really well. Yeah, really well. You just see this giant crevasse, and this little river kind of cutting through it, um, and it's great, You can see that creature. He's just falling. This really could have actually turned out really bad for Jeff. Had that cliff edge not held up under the weight of his body, pulling down on it like that. It's only grass and a little bit of soil on the edge of a cliff. It's already eroding, so that could have turned out really bad for him. He got lucky. Yeah. Oh, that picture! I really wanted to have that picture sort of blurred of Sankofa jumping off of Jeff's head, but I just kind of left it as it is. Um, I like how he's struggling to pull himself back up. I really had fun drawing that. I probably redrew it. I think I redrew it a couple of times. Mm, yeah, I have to go the long way, which is pretty much down, around, and back up the other side. Pretty much where that line of trees in the distance is. There's a path. There's not really a path, but you go down the hill, around, and then back up that way. Cutting across, they would have to cut across the river. That's further down. Nowhere near the gaff though. But I didn't show it. I decided not to show it. And instead, just kind of showed this is the passage of time there. Kind of signaled that he's on the other side now. He's starving. And this is when I talk about a little bit about the idea of Jeff being essentially a bounty hunter, a slugger. And I kind of talk about it because it hadn't been shown. It's only been 3 issues, I know, but I hadn't shown it yet, and I needed to explain, a little bit about what was going on, the reason why he was doing it, and that he was bad at it. He's not good at his job, and he's doing it in order to make money while he travels. So that's the reason why he slugs. Why he travels exactly is something that is to be revealed later. He's not just wandering for the sake of wandering. He does have purpose. Well, partially it's revealed a little bit later in issues. Partially it has to do with him getting revenge, him wanting revenge on the Crimson King for destroying his hometown and killing his parents, which is something that he talks about later. Yeah. I was actually thinking about whether or not that had been revealed in any of the books. Part of it has been revealed recently, and some more will be revealed probably by the time this comes out. So I'm okay with talking a little bit about that. Yeah. I love this. I just imagine he's like noodles, and just wet noodles just flopping about. Yeah. For some odd reason, he's not walking on the path anymore, which is silly. He should be walking on that path. Anyways, and so, here we are coming over the cliff to Dunburse. And there's Dunburse. Originally, it was, Dunburse actually went through several revisions as far as the design. And one of the final designs I decided on was, it's based on some drawings, these sort of weird cliffs that I would cliff cave sort of dwellings that I would draw in high school. I would draw these weird sort of shapes and then turn them into like these little cliff dwellings. I put little holes in them and make it so that people were living in there, and they were almost like hollowed out lava tubes. Is kind of where I was thinking, because some of them smoked, but these were these particular ones were carved by the people living in the area, and they were originally brown, just plain old rock, mountainous rock. But I decided that they should be something special. They should be a special type of rock because of this area, this particular mining town. Yeah, and Sankofa talking about last time he was here, 200, 300 years ago. So we're showing that Sankofa is a little old. He's not young, and that's I actually enjoy that that idea of him being that old. Um, and so we slowly enter Dunburse. Um, the gates of Dunburse. It's an entire mining town, and yeah, and all the exhaust, the smoke. It's actually sort of it's the exhaust from the mining that's going on down below, the processing of red clay. Um, it's Theru. Um, it's used to mine red clay, and so that's what all that is, and that what he's smelling. And this is the exhaust from that mining and processing um, of that particular mineral. Um, I originally, I might as well start talking about it now. I originally intended for this mini arc to be a little bit longer than this and a little bit different. Jeff was actually supposed to go down into the mining facility. He was actually going to join one of the mining crews. This story was rewritten 3 times before I actually started this issue. It had been rewritten 3 times over the last, prior to this, like over the last year, the year before actually committing to. Well, it was actually redone twice in the year before I actually got to issue 1, and then it was written a 3rd time just as I was coming into this issue. I started rewriting it a 3rd time, which is why this issue it's so different than I originally wanted to make it. Where Jeff was supposed to join one of the mining groups, and that was how he met Jay Mephisto. Jay Mephisto was a part of one of the mining groups. Slightly getting ahead of myself, but yeah. And there were a lot of issues with the story. He also met Amy in the mining town originally, but she worked at the local tavern slash bakery, and she was actually related to the baker. And there was just this entire story that involved Jeff and the rune claws and all this stuff, which is why it has the name The Worm's Plight. I kept the original name, even though it has absolutely nothing to do really with the final story. Well, it has less to do with the final story than it originally did. And the original story is actually going to I'm actually going to add it to a later issue coming up after the Red Castle story arc. Well, I don't know if I should have necessarily said that, but oh well. But yeah, I'll touch on what was taken out then. And let's see. Oh yeah, and Jeff asking about a slug hut. Is there a slug hut in town? He's like, And this old man, I love this old man and how he looks. He's so wonderfully cartoony. He's so wonderfully old. He's got his jowls, his little his little spectacles with the with the little magnifying lens on it. Um, oh, I think the number of books he's carrying just changed. Oh well. Um, he the old man just assumes that Jeff is here for work. Everyone comes to Dunburst to work the mines because it is a high paying job, because it is a high risk job. So they essentially get what is it called? It's called hazard pay. They essentially get hazard pay, and so you can you can walk away after one day of work having enough more money than you could make working a job for a month with one day of working in the mines. So people go to this town and they work for several weeks, and they send the money to their back to their families, and their families are well to do for quite some time, but it's very dangerous. People die all the time. But the problem is that there's such a huge waiting list that people it takes a while for people to actually be called upon to go down to the mines. So people are literally waiting in the hallways, and it's really interesting. Um, they're like sleeping in hallways. Some of them rent out uh, rooms at the inns within town, but honestly, that kind of defeats the purpose of for a lot of them, it defeats the purpose of going and working the mines if you're going to spend money staying in a room and you don't know how long you're on that waiting list for. So a lot of them just kind of sleep in the hallways and things like that. They've also created little shanty towns inside the city, which shows up later. You'll see people sleeping on the outcroppings of people's roofs and things like that in alleyways. Yeah, and this is Sankofa turning invisible to kind of cut down on people kind of losing their minds, having seen a sprite. Even though Jeff is fairly close to the Northlandic-Soutlandic border, I think I mentioned it in an earlier issue commentary that it's not really old world elements like sprites and spirits and things like that aren't necessarily welcomed in some of the more advanced towns, and especially in Dunburst. It would be very dangerous for Jeff to walk around and make people aware of the fact that he hangs out with a sprite, because this town mines for the Empire of Sands. The items that are mined here go to the Empire of Sands, and it makes it an easy target though. Yeah, I'm actually surprised that Dunburst hasn't been targeted by opposing forces and taken and overrun. But hey, I guess there is some level of neutrality. Oh, and see, and now I went back to using fonts in the computer. Oh, that's pretty. I like his hand and how the shadow hits right at his knuckles, and I like the little feather there. He writes with the quill and the feather. Yeah. It's like, young man, I don't have time to play childish games with you. If you are not here to apply for a position, then I ask you to kindly remove yourself from my presence. I am a very busy man. So wait, what? And then he walks off, and his assistant he's like over here. I mean, he's looking for number 3,437. I mean, that's where they are. And can you imagine how many people are behind him, behind that particular person? How many people there are left to be called? And this guy over here. Yeah. Hmm. Um, and then Jeff realizing for the first time that Sankofa is invisible, and he didn't even know he could do that. Yeah, it's like, look, he did. He turned himself invisible as soon as he detected the Faru. Uh, he didn't want to start. He didn't want to start a scene. Um, anyways, earlier, um, Sank and Jeff were talking about red clay, and it made them both uncomfortable. And I will explain it as this issue goes. I'm hoping I remember by the time I get to the end of this. Um, excuse me. Yeah, that's awesome. Everyone's just kind of looking at him because he looks like he's talking to himself. And they're just like, right. That guy over there, the guy in the corner in the right hand corner with the yellow sheet covering himself, actually appears several times in this issue. Um, I believe it's this issue, or it might be within. Yeah, no, I think it's just this issue. He appears several times throughout the book. I was just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it, just to be silly. Um, Actually, I really like their outfits. The old man and his assistant. I like the colors on their outfits and stuff, and it's really funny. I like him. He's like all embarrassed and stuff, and stomping off into the center of town. So what I was saying about red clay is used. How to explain? Trying to think how exactly I should explain red clay and its unusual effects. It is used in weapons. It's kind of like it can be used. Well, it can be used in weapons, but it also has an electrical discharge when used a specific way in certain tools, and it's very dangerous. It's very unstable. It's a very unstable mineral, and which is why they use Ferru to mine it. Ferru actually keeps it from essentially being explosive. Um, really. Um, oh. Um, and so it's kind of dangerous to be around it and to be a logic smith because using an incantation, invoking something, evoking something, could set it off. And to be honest, all Jeff would have to do is use his logic once and in the wrong way, and it would set off the entire town. Um, Essentially, just blowing the entire town sky high. But he's also concerned about um, the specific electrical discharge. Uh, it is like a stun gun, which is actually something that's later used in the issue. And it's very uncomfortable, and he's just really uncomfortable with all of these these things he knows about uh, red clay, and it's used in weaponizing and things like that. And he's just really uncomfortable with all of it, and being in the middle of what is most likely a military mining town. You know, which side he doesn't know which side at the time he doesn't know which side it's for, but he does soon learn. And they have natural and artificial lighting. Yes, the natural lighting comes through those some of those portals, those little the vent holes. A lot of natural lighting comes through there during the day, and at night they have the artificial lighting, and it's impressive because they're in essentially in the country, and out there, artificial lighting is it takes a lot of effort to light things artificially because they're so far away from the cities, that power plants really aren't out there because, well, how do you maintain them? You get them in some of the larger towns. The town that Jeff is from had artificial lighting, and all of the cities out and about the Northlands have artificial lighting. Um, but most towns, no, they go by like candle and lamplight, things like that, gas lamps, things of that nature. But nothing that's electric based. It's just because they're far out. They're really far away from very modern, not really modern, but high technological civilization. And that is something that exists. There is the world is kind of divided. It's there are very very technologically advanced places in this story, and they're mostly in cities. Definitely, the Empire stands when we get to that point in the story, and you'll see it's far. It exceeds this little town by so much. Anyways, so Jeff he's hungry and he's trying to decide, what he should do. Should he get a meal or rent a room or what? They're just kind of passing through. They were looking for a slug hut in order to find a bounty so that he could make more money so that he could actually eat and be able to continue on with his journey. But there's no slug hut in this town because it's just straight mining. They cut down on any and every everything other than catering to the miners. Um, yeah, and they're just talking about it's hazard pay, and you could probably die. Um, yeah, there are a lot of restaurants and things like that, little farmers markets and things, uh, different equipment for miners. The place is really there are only a few things. There's like restaurants, equipment shops, and inns all over this town. There are people that live there, but they've lived there for who knows how long since the town was what Sankofa remembers the town looking like a long time ago, before it was all mined out and looks like it does now. Um, it looked like a regular town, a little tiny mining town. But 200, 300 years, it's a little different now. And more than likely, the people that originally settled the area, they probably have all converted their homes into hotels, inns, motels, things like that, bed and bath kind of thing, bed and breakfast. I mean, those kinds of things. Um, and Jeff, not paying attention, running into people. Oof. Oh, this guy turns around, and it's just like, oh dear, oh dear. Look at his face. um, yeah. And he slaps him so hard that Sankofa goes flying off of his head. Um, and this is like what I was saying earlier with Jeff not really getting along with adults and having a problem with the adult world, and it's because when he's out on his own, he's the master of his domain. He's independent. He runs his world. It's his world. But when he goes into a town like this, it makes him very uncomfortable. Excuse me, because he is a child again. No matter what he does or how important he is in his world, or even to like the town that he left before. Those people will always remember him, for how much he helped their town. But it doesn't matter in this town, that village. It doesn't matter in this town because he's just some punk kid to this guy, and to probably a lot of people. He's just some kid wandering around. Oh yeah. He looks like he's about to do something horrible, but he doesn't. Does he? Not really. He gets in his face. He snatches him. And it's so, I purposely made it, I deliberately made the events happen differently. Originally, in the story Jeff punched the guy. And he punched him hard enough that it broke his mask. And then he ran. Actually, he punched him several times after that initial punch, in front of everyone, and then he ran. And so that's why they were chasing him, the other guy's friends. I think I killed this particular character, in the original story. Or I either killed him or he was very, very badly injured. You can see I drew a fingernail. It's a really raggedy looking fingernail too. Wow, that guy's hands are awful. And I decided against it because I thought about, I didn't want to have Jeff going nuts on people in every single issue. I needed there to be some sort of balance. I didn't want it to always be about crazy over the top action, and I thought about the fact that really Jeff couldn't go crazy like that in a town like this and expect not to get arrested. He would be arrested fairly quick. He would be found fairly quick. Something like that it's too public. And so I made his character decide not to. He decided not to, but also it had to do with his being in this town and just being reminded that he's just a kid. He's just a little kid, compared to this grown man who's picked him up by his shirt. But, he's still Jeff, so yeah, quick knee to the crotch. Takes this guy down. I love this. He's like, and he just barfs. I love that. And everyone sees it. Oh. And originally there were, I was supposed to show that there were other people standing around, kind of shopping at the little markets and things like that are around the area, but sometimes I get lazy. And this particular issue took me a very long time to work on. I worked on it for, I believe it was exactly like 2 months. And it took that long for several reasons. One reason being that I was finishing school. I was about to graduate from art school, and I needed to make sure that I was passing my classes. And so I had to concentrate less on Goblin and more on those. And then I was actually going through some things personally, like a lot of money problems, because graduating as an animator requires so much. I had to actually have a demo reel, and I had to make several copies of my demo reel. So I had to buy all these materials, and I had to have a flat book to go with my demo reel, and all these different things, all these things for presentation purposes for our portfolio show that we do, at graduation. and it was so much money just to graduate from school. Um, you pay going in and you pay coming out, and I was so depressed because at that point I didn't I had lost my job, the job that I had when I first started school. I lost that job. I lost my car, and just a lot of things had happened, and just kind of ruined a lot of plans that I had uh, for after I graduated. And I got a job with the school, but it didn't pay a lot. So I was struggling just to uh, keep all these things together. And so this book kind of, it sort of reflects um, a bit of that frustration, and especially in how long it took to finish it. I just sometimes would just walk away from the book, and I was like, I don't think I want to even finish. So Jeff runs away, and he hasn't realized that Sankofa isn't with him. He got knocked off his head, and Jeff ended up running off. I love some of these background characters. They have so much character. Like a little guy with the purple shirt. I love his nose. Look at that thing. And this woman here in the foreground with the pink head wrap. Actually based on a girl that I know from high school, and I ran into her. She's a friend of my little sister, and I ran into her on the city bus one day, and you're just like, oh hey, oh my goodness, hey, that kind of situation, and I threw her into the book. And she was pretty much dressed like that. She had a head wrap that was, pink like that. It didn't have the piece on the at the end to hold, it together at the bottom, but that's just design. And her blouse wasn't that fancy, but okay. It still kind of looks like her. Well, what you can see of her. Yeah. I think the colors of all the people in the background, as well as Jeff's colors, they all seem to work with the colors that I used for the interior of Dunburst. The blues and the purples, sort of, what is that? Yeah, well, I forget exactly what shade of blue that is, but it doesn't really matter. But those particular colors that I chose for the people around this area, I think they really came out well, and they complemented the colors of Dunburst well. And that's when he realizes, he's looking around, and in the distance you can see, there's that rune claw who's looking for Jeff, the guy who need him in his garbanzos. Yeah, but in this town, the rune claws are law. They are sort of hired. They were just kind of hired thugs. They're bandits, essentially, sort of a bandit ring that was hired to keep order in the town, and they have a big head, because that's special. They're getting paid a lot for this, but they're not official, which is something that is later revealed. So now Jeff he's got to find Sank, but he's not sure where to look. Now he ran so far away from where they originally were. He's not sure where to look for Sank, and this place has so many nooks and crannies. It's just a labyrinth. And so now he's kind of getting a little lost. And you can see there's some people over there that have sort of built a little hut right there that they live in, waiting for their turn to be called. And the thing is, you have to let the people at the front gates when you register to work the mines, you have to let them know where you're going to be. So if they built this little hut right here, one of them probably went all the way back to the front gates, told the guy where they were going to be exactly, so that when their number has come up, they can come back and they're called. But also, there's the possibility that some of these guys that are sleeping here are also they've already taken a turn in the mines, and this is them sleeping between shifts because the shifts are very long. There are more people. The shifts are very, very long in the mines, and which is part of the danger. You can just die of exhaustion. See, all these people are just people either waiting their turn or they've already worked in the mine and they're tired from a long day, and they're just kind of sleeping on the outcroppings of buildings, the roofs essentially of buildings. And people don't mind. They don't really mind because um, it kind of helps benefit the whole town. The whole town makes money off of this. Some of these people probably did have to pay a small fee just to set up there. But some of them might just be up there illegally, essentially. And Jeff still hunting around looking for Sankofa. There's that guy again. And he's like, psst. He just hears a little sound. He's, what? And, yeah. It's Sankofa. He caught up with Jeff. Yeah. So Sankofa is definitely Sankofa is definitely better than Jeff at I guess hunting or tracking. He's much better at tracking. I don't even know what the scientific term or the technical term for tracking is, but he's definitely better than Jeff, which is part of Jeff's problem. And he actually voices this a little bit later, that he is not really good at tracking. He's okay with capturing. He's very good at capturing a bounty, a slug, but not necessarily the tracking part. And it's just kind of funny to think about that. Let me see. And so Sankofa and Jeff are reunited. And look at all the garbage bags piling up all over the place. And that's I can imagine how strong the smell must be, because it's almost an enclosed area. On top of the smell of the mining that's going on there, the Feru, but you have also this trash piling up and people all over this place, and it's probably a very strong and thick odor. There's because it's an enclosed area, and it must, oh my goodness, I can only imagine. Like, it's warm. Eravana is a very not tropical, but a very warm planet. Some spots are like springtime, while others are like summer. There is no true winter. There are areas that are higher, so they do get snow, but those areas are very, very sparse. But they're really high up. So the majority of the area is very warm, and so I mean, like, in an enclosed area like this, I can imagine how sweltering and suffocating and stuffy it is in there. With that smell, it's just like walking through a thick cloud of yuck. Gross. So Sankofa has told him that he's found a place that they can hide out, and he has to climb up. And originally, this particular sequence it showed Jeff squatting and then jumping up, but I left it out, because it was just more than was necessary to show him jumping up and grabbing onto the edge of that building, the little outcropping, and pulling himself up. And you can kind of see some of the people down below walking around in the streets below. And then they sneak in to this guy's room while he's asleep. And originally there was a lot of nonsense that was supposed to happen, really really comical stuff. Jeff knocking over things in the darkness and stuff, and I cut a lot of it out. And he opens the door, and originally the guy was supposed to he was supposed to kind of roll over like he could like he kind of slightly disturbed his sleep as he opened the door, but I cut that part as well. And have him sort of peeping through the door here. I love the electrical light over there. It's so steampunk, I guess, which is, I guess, in all honesty, there are several pieces of different genres all tossed into one. They're all different things I love. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi. I love steampunk. I love horror. I love horror. I don't, there's so many different ways to say that, and it sounds weird some ways. But all these things kind of mixed together, mystery and I try to mix them all together in this world because it's based on my dream world, and in my dreams, any and everything goes. I've had dreams where they are very steampunky in parts, and then they'll make a sudden shift, and it's very technologically advanced. I'll move from one area to the other, and it's the exact same world, and that's what I'm trying to convey through the work, is that different areas are at different levels of technological advancement, and in some places there's a cross-pollination, a mixing. I think I say cross-pollination too much. There's a mixing of several eras of technological advancement. Some places just they can't afford to be really advanced. It's very expensive in this world to be as advanced as say some of the cities are. But the cities are generally run by they're run by corporations mostly. They surround corporations and or royal families or things like that. People, very wealthy families and things of that nature are in charge of cities or run cities or establish cities or fund cities, things like that. Like the Empire of Sands, which is let's not even talk about it. So there's Jeff looking down over this bar with people walking around and drinking and having a merry good time. Just enjoying themselves. And Jeff really not liking the fact that he has to mingle with these people. He's not a real big people person, but mostly because he has a problem with being treated like a kid. He has a problem with authority, and he knows in a place like this, even though he can hold his own, it just kind of brings up old emotions, old feelings of inferiority, in contrast of being a kid in an adult world. And yeah, these people. A new guy just suddenly comes down the stairs. It's like, everyone's sizing him up, kind of looking at this kid walking around in this bar full of adults. And it's like, well, what the heck? I don't know exactly what the age is to drink in this world. It's not something I necessarily concern myself with. But I imagine that he's probably not old enough to drink, but he's probably not too far off. Um, yeah, and here's our lovely bartender. uh, I love his face. I love his eyes and his eyelashes and his blushing cheeks, and he's so wonderful, and interestingly enough, this guy, he has rooms. He has, it looks like 4 rooms left. They must not be terribly expensive. Um, but Jeff can only afford a single room. He had to make his decision either to eat or to stay the night in a room. And he had to stay in a room in order to hide from the rune claws. And enter Mr. J, which is pretty awesome. And here he is, our lovely J Mephisto, who he's changed a little since I first started drawing him. I don't know, his mohawk there is just silly, kind of. It looks really silly to me now. But he, as a character, has changed several times, and that mohawk was something that I created for him while I was in school, in college. I did a couple of animations featuring J Mephisto outside of his red outfit and just kind of his plain clothes like this, and I don't know, for some odd reason, well, I say for some odd reason, I felt that he should have a mohawk, but I had a mohawk myself at the time, so I think that was part of it. Yeah. And he's like, and he's a fairly nice guy. He offers to buy Jeff a meal, and Jeff turns it down. He's like, no, he's trying to, not be needy, or he's like, he doesn't need anyone to help. He doesn't want to be helpless. And Jay's just kind of staring at this guy because he's trying to figure him out. He's like, who is this kid? And Jeff's like, he's like, what? He's like, why are you staring at me? And then we realize why J Mephisto is staring at Jeff. And he says nothing after he looks up, and Sankofa realizes why he's been staring at Jeff. And it's because he can, even though Sankofa is invisible, J Mephisto can see him. And that, I thought, was interesting, and Sankofa realizes this. Uh-oh. Somebody walking in. Oh, and enter more rune claws. Oh no. And people are a mix between nervous and really unamused by these guys showing up. They just disdain. And they're very arrogant people, and they're very annoying, the rune claws, and so they're looking for someone. They're looking for someone who disrespected one of the rune claws. And that, of course, that is Jeff. And they got lucky going into this particular bar looking for him. They're probably all over town looking for him. And oh no, I see a mistake, but I'm not going to point it out. Anyways, no one really is willing to really talk. They're kind of bullies, the rune claws, and people are a little afraid of them, but at the same time, some of them are not. People generally just do not like the rune claws, because it's not like they're actual authority figures. They're not law enforcement in reality. They are bandits who were hired locally by the local merchants to keep things in order. And so it doesn't, and so they're kind of uh, running the area, and people aren't really pleased with, you know, with these guys who've come in, were hired thugs and running the area, and yeah, Jay Mephisto really doesn't like them, which was supposed to be a part of the overall story. There were elements of there were supposed to be elements of a background with Jay Mephisto and the Runeclaws having butted heads before in town. But I cut those, and it's not actually a part of the story any longer. It's not canon. Not although some things that I've mentioned are, and some things aren't. But that's no longer canon. That he's had any prior experience with the Runeclaws. I don't necessarily like him this picture of him drinking because the cup is not against his face, and you don't see any liquid. Anyways, so for some odd reason, Jay Mephisto decides he's the guy that they're looking for, and he announces it, and he's like, "What are you saying?" And really, this is Jay being very much aware that Sank and Jeff are the people that they're looking for, or rather, Jeff is the person that the Runeclaws are looking for, and kind of just taking it upon himself to help this kid out because he sees, this guy's young, and clearly there's something more to him than just some random kid, and so he's willing to kind of take the fall for this guy, because he's fairly confident that he's not going to be in too much trouble. But he also has a card up his sleeve. There's a reason for him doing this, and I'll talk about that a little bit later because it's actually something that I left out of the later issues, and I probably shouldn't have. But I'll talk about it in a different commentary. So Jeff is like, he doesn't understand why this total stranger would volunteer himself for what I'm sure most people in there are assuming is going to be the death of Mr. J, as they all know. But if they didn't think that he was going to die then, they surely do now, because he has decided to start fighting the Runeclaws. And this is just me kind of showing off how awesome Jay is. He's just, he's cool. But this is all of this. It's all a part of his particular plan. Yeah, and I really should have gone into more depth about what was going on with Jay Mephisto, and I feel bad for not. But the next few issues, I was really going through a lot of insanity. And so the story was kind of, it fell apart and came back together. And here we are, with one of the tools that's built out of red clay. And that little floating orb in the middle, is like a battery. It's made out of a different material, and it's like a battery, and when it's combined with red clay and it comes in contact with skin, it lets off a shock, a discharge, an electrical discharge, and can knock you out fairly quickly. Of course, if you get stabbed with that, that's a whole other question. And this is when you see Jay Mephisto using his pyro techniques, one of his incantations, using fire. I love this picture. Although I have to say I got a little carried away with the fire effect here. There are about 6 layers in Photoshop as far as that fire is concerned, and it's just, I wasn't sure at the time how I was going to use his ability, how I was going to do it at the time, and this was one of the first instances of me using the lasso tool to do special effects. Instead of drawing them by hand, I used the lasso tool and filled it in order to do effects and create transparencies and things like that, so that there was no visible border around the fire or any of the other effects within the title. Um, and it's something I would later use on Sankofa's flame on top of his head. The same technique, but I just got carried away. I really got carried away because I was unsure of how to do that particular fire. And they're just like, whoa. And the bartender back there is drooling a little. He has a name, and I do not remember his name. I'm not sure if it was mentioned in the book or not. I cannot remember. But he does have a name, because he is the most recent version of the bartender that was originally related to Amy. He is not related to Amy in this version, but originally he was. But he was younger, thinner, and they both had a guy who adopted them, and they called him their grandfather. And he was kind of on his deathbed, but he was an integral part of the story and stuff. And all of that does not exist any longer. Yeah. But it may show up later. I won't say yes or no. Anyways, so they realize that J. Mephisto is a logic smith, and this is going to get him in a lot of trouble. And you can see this guy, this other rune claw, using a different version of one of those things, with red clay and the little orb to shock him. Shocked him pretty bad. He's drooling. And Jeff was about to get up and go do something, and the bartender stops him, says him, he's like, don't get involved, because he knows what's going to happen to J. Mephisto. Now that he is a known logic smith, the military is definitely going to show up. And it's pretty much a death sentence for J. Mephisto, to make himself a known logic smith, known logic user. Yeah, the guy on the end, apparently his name is Saris. Very few of the rune claws were given names from the beginning, but Saris apparently does have a name. There are a couple, including the rune claw's leader. They all have names. Even the guy who got kneed in the crotch, he has a name as well, which I cannot remember. But more on that later. I love this big guy. I love the way that his face looks and his big nose, and he's very, I don't know, it's just, he has a very interesting look. And I love the way that, I know it sounds weird, but I love the way the blood looks running down his face. It's cool. And that's another instance of me using the lasso tool to do effects. It's just a separate layer that I use the lasso tool, the eraser tool, and a brush, a very, very, very small brush in Photoshop to create the lines and the patches and things like that, and the little stippling. Yeah. So you can't win against the rune claws. It's not necessarily true for for logic smiths. But clearly, J. Mephisto could have escaped if he wanted to. But obviously, I would think it would be obvious that there's something going on there. Oh, and I love this sequence of the lights turning out, bing, 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 at night. And the original idea I was going to have was this guy right here walking around, actually was turning the lights off manually with that little stretchy arm thing that he has there. I forget what you call those things. It's a little reacher, and he would reach up and he was turning the lights off manually. But I decided that it wasn't. I didn't like the idea of someone walking around town turning off the lights, and so I decided that at certain times, the entire town kind of shut down, or at least most of the merchants shut down, and the power was turned off. And this guy is just kind of a citizen of the town that walks around making sure everyone's okay as they're closing up shop and everything. And he carries his lamp around. And I was going to show a couple of them, but I decided not to. You see that little kid, waving, hey, kind of funny. And this is Jeff commenting on the fact that the whole town shuts down. And this is one of those things I was talking about where you show something instead of talking about it. I could have just had Jeff talking about the fact that the whole town shuts down at midnight, but then I decided to show it. And they're talking about the generator and stuff, and there is a reason, and I didn't exactly go 100% into the reason why the town shuts down and all that stuff, but it's slightly covered in the upcoming issues. So then Jeff, he notices something. He's like, I think I just saw a Doki down there. He's like, what? That's not what Sankofa sounds like, but whatever. And he jumps down and he's like, let me see. He's like, right down there. Because I sworn I saw him, And they don't. He's like, where? I don't see it. And he's like, And originally, I did show Sanko. I did show the particular Doki who shows up later in the story, running past a couple of people who couldn't see him. It was like, why can't they see him? And he was invisible. So yeah, that's Goblin issue 3, which kind of is a milestone for me, as it was kind of the last issue that I did before graduating from college. So it's kind of it means something to me in a slightly different way, and it was kind of that point of no return. Like when I decided definitively that I was going to continue on working on Goblin. And this is what I wanted to. This is one of those things that I wanted to do. Other than animate, I wanted to work on this series. So I decided to keep going and continue telling the story. Again, I want to thank you for sticking with me through my rambling. I hope I wasn't mumbling too much, and so the volume wasn't too low on this recording. I still haven't gotten any new equipment. I'm still working with this very old recording equipment, but hopefully this came out okay. And I hope that I will see you on the rest of the Worm's Plight mini arc, parts 2 and parts 3. And I'll see you, or I keep saying that, talk to you, or, yeah.